Alrighty, boys. Go ahead, Barbara. You want to do this one?
Word. Well, Real Relay fam, we have a good friend here today, Andrew Widmer, starting up his own podcast called
The XU Podcast.
There you go. So we like to kick it off by just asking, very open-ended. You can take it however you want, answer however you will. Andrew Widmer, who are you today?
I'm going to let you finish. Do you mind if I just hop in for a sec? I just chugged the fucking Red Bull before I got here. Real Relay fam, we have a lot of people that come on this podcast, and I just wanted to say one thing right now, one thing only. We have so many people that come on this podcast that say they're doing this and they're doing that. I need you to listen to the words coming out of this dude's fucking mouth today. This dude is doing it from the ground up. Bottom, the 1% win every single day that changes your fucking life. You're going to get that gem movie advice today. We have one of the realest people ever on this fucking planet doing his own podcast, doing his own shit, coming right from the fucking bottom. Don't give a fuck about what you say or what anyone else says. Doing it. You already know. Andrew Widmer, the XU Podcast, EDM for everything EDM. You know where to fucking tune in. Season 3 on a goddamn roll. Andrew Widmer in the fucking building. What's going on, baby?
That's why I love you, boy.
Look at that fucking intro.
That's why I love you, boy.
Yeah. He goes, Barbara's like, damn, he just must have sent that Red Bull before he got here.
Yeah. Just shotgun the Red Bull.
Yeah.
I poured the Red Bull down his throat before he
Yeah. Now, Barbara, go ahead. Ask him the famous question.
After that intro, Andrew, tell us who you are today.
Yeah, well, thanks, Jose. My name is Andrew Widmer. I'm 26 years old. I'm living in Boston, from New York. So moved to Boston in November of 2020 because I was like, I'm done living at home during the pandemic. Need to switch things up. So loving Boston. And I am the host and the founder of the XU Podcast, which is an electronic music dance podcast that I've been doing for 6 months now which has been a ton of fun. Outside of that, I'm a music lover, obviously. Love going to concerts, love listening to music, playing music. Love reading, love running, love doing a bunch of stuff, but love having fun. And, love spending time with friends and super stoked to be here with you guys. You guys have been killing it, and we've had this on the calendar for a little bit. So
I remember we were in the GDP movie event.
Yes.
And there were so many fucking lights in front of me and like shit like that. Like I was just trying to do something like quick with you on the side. And they came and like everyone's like, yo, hold on, he needs light, he needs lighting, he needs this. And then they're all fucking in front of me and I'm like asking you questions and I'm like,
let me say, I'm just a little bit less nervous than I was like when you did that, because that was like, I think I even like recorded like half an episode. I barely had started the XU Podcast.
Yeah.
And now I'm like 6 months into it. I'm still pretty nervous getting interviewed by you guys, but you guys run, you run it real. So that was super fun. That was back in probably October or November.
Yeah. No, it was September, even later, September. And that was insane, bro. Like I remember he was like, yo, I'm starting this podcast. I'm going to come on your guys' shit. Like we're going to talk about it. And we made it happen. So again,
months later, we still made it happen.
And I'm telling you, Real Relay fam, there is a Real Relay cinematic universe with characters. And this is one of the characters in the fucking Avengers, bro.
Talk about plot development. It's happening live.
There is real development here. There is a real storyline here. It's there. You just gotta listen. It's there 100%.
This one ties into the episode with Connor Holloway.
Yeah, exactly.
We're in like the Real Relate like metaverse. Right?
Yeah, exactly. We're fucking, there's a whole multiverse and everything, dude. It's awesome. So talk to us a little bit about your podcast. Like, why did you want to start your podcast? And this is like for people listening like out there like who are just getting into podcasts for the first time, because with COVID and everything, it's like a fucking everyone and their mother's got a podcast.
Yeah, it's a very basic path to follow, I think, when like you first look at it, right? Like 26-year-old guy who is working a job and he's trying to find some creative outlet outside of that. For me, my inspiration was a couple of things. First off, I've always just loved music, like all music. Grew up in a house where like my parents were my dad especially like loves music and kind of like the science and the storylines behind bands, and he was big into the Grateful Dead, and as well as my mom. So like I'd hear about like the band members and where they came from and how the band formed and the drama within the band and things like that. So that was always kind of a part of growing up, just like being into music. And I found out about electronic music a lot, or similar to a lot of people, around the 2011, 2012 era. So for those who don't know, dance music and EDM kind of came onto the American scene in 2010, late 2000, like 2000s, so like 2009, 2010, 2011 was when Swedish House Mafia, Avicii, you had Alesso, and you had these guys coming over, Calvin Harris, kind of making it more mainstream. So that was when like people in America, young people especially, so my brothers at the time were in college. Avicii actually played Providence College their senior year. I don't know if you guys knew that.
That's insane.
That was in 2012. But long story short is I remember it was about my freshman year of high school, I kind of started to pick up on this electronic music thing happening. And immediately I was like, this is new, this is different. And the first like electronic music that was popular was like the David Guetta with like the Black Eyed Peas. You guys remember those like late kind of radio pop songs, Kesha and those types of songs. That was electronic music. When you go back and listen to it, Party Rock Anthem, like that's all electronic music, but it didn't really kind of become what it is today. I mean, it's changed so much, but that first wave when, you know, there were festivals and people like myself started getting into DJs, you know, specific DJs and following them, that was like 2011, 2012. So that's when I got into it. And since then, I've been obsessed with it. I mean, it's my favorite type of music. It's very vast, which we'll get into in terms of like the amount of different genres there are. But I just loved it. And throughout college, I loved it. I loved listening to it. I loved sharing it with friends. I loved playing it at parties. I mean, like, you know.
For your record, we went to Providence College. You know, this is just a FYI for you and your mom. But we went to fucking Providence College. And I remember being in the basement parties with fucking Widmer, and he's just like fucking out of his mind, just toasted, and he's just like getting ready. He's pretending like he's got like a mixer like this. And he's like, every time right before the beat would drop, he would fucking ring it, and it would smack, and then we'd all just go absolutely bananas, bro. Like he was DJing the fucking parties. So you've had that in you for so long.
And for the people listening, I don't DJ, which is like the funny thing.
That's the funny thing. You're like,
he's like this. He's just like,
I'm like the best. Like I like air guitar. It's like the equivalent of like air guitar,
but air DJ.
And I would love just finding, like, discovering, going down these rabbit holes of sets and finding new songs and new artists. And as I've gotten older, it's continued to just be a big part of my life, whether it's commuting to work or back when we used to do that, going on runs, you know, going out still, going to concerts. So the pandemic happened, and like many people, I found myself with a lot more time. And I reached a point last year where I was actually reading a book called The Almanac of Naval Ravikant, which is a book by this dude Naval, who's this like kind of like like modern day philosopher, and he talks about using specific knowledge and leveraging it. So what you guys do with this podcast is leveraging your specific knowledge of being able to communicate and being able to sell a brand. And for me, I was like, okay, I know about electronic music more than 95% of the people in my life.
Say that.
I love it. I know the ins and outs of it. Yeah, get into it.
Bro. Talk your shit right now.
Talk your shit to the motherfucking mic right now.
So I was like, you know what? I'm good at this. Like, I understand. I don't know how to DJ. I don't know how to make the music, but I know about this like very well, and I love sharing it, and I love like kind of preaching it to people of just what's popular in the scene today, who's hot, who's not, what's like artists are to watch, what's happening in the scene. So I sat back and I was like, I should, you know, start just talking about this, getting it out there in the world. And he talks about this in the book, like you have to act on inspiration. So I was like, you know what, quickly, a podcast is easy to get up and running, right? You can hit record on your phone, hit record on your computer. So I started doing that. And the idea behind the podcast was a place for me to just talk about dance music, talk about music I'm into. And it's grown into being able to interview DJs, producers, videographers, people who are like behind the scenes at these shows that I go to. And it's been super fun. And, you know, we're continuing to just build on it and keep it going.
Yeah, I was going to say, when you first started, I know like behind the scenes, you and I had a conversation and we were like, you seemed like I guess I want you to speak on like kind of maybe the insecurities and the vulnerability that you had like starting out the podcast and not wanting to promote it maybe as much or not really put it out there because you were unsure of how people would feel about it. Can you talk a little bit about the insecurities and the vulnerabilities that you had that, to be frank, like we also went through as well too, and a lot of people starting up kind of feel a type of way about starting something up and like sharing it and opening it up to the world?
Yeah, I think when you put your name behind something and you put it out into the public, it makes something real. And I think a lot of reasons why people don't act on inspiration or they don't act on a creative thought that they have is because once they get it out there, it's like, okay, well now if it fails, then my name's attached to that and that's going to bring me down with it. So when I started the podcast, first off, I was like, okay, I've never done this before. Like I want it to be good. But I remember I have notes in my phone of when I was like creating ideas for it, and I remember one of the notes was just do it. Just whether it's good, whether it's bad, whether it's an hour, whether it's 10 minutes, just get something out every week because you'll get better at it and you'll be able to build on it. And the insecurities that came in the beginning was really like, okay, is this something I'm going to like attach myself to at 26 or, I was 25 at the time. Like this is a new hobby that I'm going to take on and I don't want it to sputter out. I want to be proud of it. But I'm also doing it like I think at the end of the day, it's a passion that I have. It's a hobby, but it's a passionate hobby. So it's like I'm into it and I want to be proud of it. But I also want to do it for fun. Like I don't want to lose my mind trying to get it's a lot lot of work. And that's I'm
starting a podcast? No way. A lot of work? No fucking way.
It's fucking
exactly.
It's fucking easy.
Yeah. And so like I think there was a big, just in the beginning, insecurities of I don't want this to like sputter out, but I also don't want it to become something maybe bigger than I'm like ready to take on. I was still kind of trying to figure out like the direction I wanted to do with it, where at the core of it, I was just like, I just want to be able to talk about music on a platform that I can share and meet people and interview DJs or people I'm into, artists I'm into. But yeah, those insecurities in the beginning are for sure real. And they're still real. Like, you have doubts about, man, why am I doing this? Or like, maybe I should, pump the brakes. Maybe I should speed up. I should be doing this. I should be doing that. But I think at the end of the day, you just got to kind of be confident in like your, again, specific knowledge that you're leveraging. Build on that.
Just remember like why in the first place you're doing it.
Yeah, exactly. It's fun.
Always remember to the first. Like you have the knowledge and it's fun.
Yeah, I just like there's nothing I love more about like than showing like my brothers or my good friends like a new artist or a new song.
Yeah.
Or you guys, did you see what this artist just did at this festival? Or check out this edit or whatever it is. I mean, the music is obviously at the forefront of it, but it's like, again, the ins and outs and the storylines that I'm like super into, kind of the coverage of it.
Yeah.
And it's fun talking about.
So I'm saying that's very true. And like I say, we relate. You know what I mean? We love talking about this type of shit. And like, another thing you might, at least we've run into, and definitely you'll probably run into, if not, if you haven't already, but that's like dealing with like haters, you know what I mean? And talking about like, I know a lot about music. I know a lot about pop culture. I know a lot about gaming and tech, you know what I mean? And I'll have a lot of people, let's say like in my circle or people around me that say like, fuck you in your opinion sometimes, you know what I mean? Or like, fuck this and fuck this, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. How do you kind of overcome those hurdles and those challenges of maybe people like telling you like, why are you doing a podcast? Yeah. Like, why, like, you know what I mean? And like dealing with that type of shit and like validating your kind of knowledge of what you know.
I think a big part of it, and you guys can definitely relate to this, is knowing your audience, like knowing who you're targeting. Yeah. I think that's big in podcasting and just in anything you're putting out is understanding who your focus is and who you're trying to really connect with. For me, I'm lucky because my podcast is a niche podcast. It's for people who are not just listeners of electronic music, but people who are like me that are like passionate about electronic music. I always joke with my friends and my brothers or whoever it is, but I can probably count on like one hand, like the amount of like all my friends listen to electronic music. Like they all fuck with it at parties. Some of them know it a lot more than others, but there's specific friends that are like same wavelength as me when it comes to they're always listening to it. Yeah. They're always trying to find new stuff.
Give them a shout out.
Shout them out.
Christian Giacadino, Pat Kenny, and my older brothers are super into it. Guys like that, my buddy Sean Ratty, Dan Jarman, like
That's your base foundation community
those are
right
those
there.
are like my guys that
Yeah.
and like we have our friendship has become like closer and stronger because of
That's nice.
Alex Jenkins. I went to a concert with him.
Shout out Alex Jenkins,
Yeah.
my boy here.
Yeah, he's another one. We went to a show on Friday together, and like he's someone that like I hadn't seen him in a couple months, and I hadn't talked to him in a while, but we immediately just had the connection. So
Mingle?
no, Mingle I've seen a bunch, but Mingle and I we bounce around. But back to what I was saying, I think like dealing with haters is not everyone's gonna get it, and electronic music specifically, like electronic music's gotten a bad rap for years since it's come on the scene back in 2011, 2012 of these guys are just press and play. They're not really doing anything. They're up there like, why, this isn't real music. Like that's the classic argument against dance music, which, I can take down if I wanted to, but.
Go ahead.
Well.
Yeah, talk to us about that.
Well, and it's something I've learned too over the years, like these producers, somebody on my podcast actually said, they had a great take on producers and DJs specifically. Avicii, for example. So I'm a huge Avicii guy. R.I.P.
RP.
He was more like a Mozart. Like when people went to go see Mozart or Beethoven, they weren't going to see them like perform. They were like conducting their band because they wrote the music. Mm-hmm. And it was or when they went to go see Bach or any of these ancient composers that are forever etched in the history of music. It was these composers that were presenting their music that came from their mind. And it's no different than when you went to an Avicii concert and he was up there just presenting the music that started in his mind. He was conducting it. So they're modern day composers in it, and that's how I look for it. And certainly they're not playing it, like I'm not saying that what they're doing up there is more impressive than seeing Jimi Hendrix, do a guitar solo live. Like and I love that. I love that type of music, but it's just a different presentation of music and a different presentation of art. And once you can break down that barrier, the world opens up. For me, it did at least. Like there's endless amounts of just different creative like ways of presenting the music and the art, and it's beautiful. It's intense. It's you can find like solace in it. So yeah, that's why I love it. Like
it's a vibe.
Exactly.
You got to be able to vibe with that type of shit. You know what I mean? Like it's not. It's like you said. It's not made for every single person. That's fine. But like the people that do understand that it's a vibe. You know what I mean? If you want to sit there and critique it and say this and that, that's cool. But like at the end of the day, it's a massive genre for music. I mean, Ultra Music Festival, insane. Go to all these fucking crazy ass concerts and all these music festivals. And like when I think of a music festival, I think of like EDM type of music. You know what I mean? Because it's a vibe. It's like more of like an experience.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like versus like going like to a rap concert where like you're seeing someone perform, you know what I mean? Like they're conducting the music and they're having this whole experience for everyone to just vibe out on, you know what I'm saying? Like that's what it's really about. It's not necessarily like you said, like it's someone conducting the fucking work,
and a big part of it too is like you go to the Grand on a Friday night here in Boston and people, whether they're into electronic music or not, they'll dress up with their friends, they'll have fun, they'll get drinks, they'll get bottle service, and they'll have a great time. And they're going to be partying. And I love doing that. Like you go to Vegas, the clubs all have DJs playing in them. For me, it's not necessarily. It's like I go to an electronic music concert, and some of them are different. Some I'll go just for fun because I'm like, oh fuck it, this guy's playing in the city on this night. That'd be fun to go to the Grand or go to Big Night Live. But at this point, it's more I'm going to these concerts because like same way I would go see a band that I really like.
Yeah,
it's like one of my favorite artists is in town. I want to go see what they're doing. So. I think there's a big like distinction between, and that's what my podcast is really for, is like to
distinguish
the people who look at this music as like their type of music and they're into, and that's not to stop anyone from listening to it who's not super into it, but some people listen to electronic music because it's good party music. Others listen to it because they fuck with it, and it's like their type of music. So
yeah, I just want it to fucking bang. I'm like a basic ass listener. So you're saying I could send you any artist, like I said, any DJ, and be like, "Yo, Wid, is she good?"
I have a pretty good pulse on. Well, that's another thing with the podcast is I'm very.
You're learning too with it.
Yeah, well, I'm very upfront with like it's my podcast, like it's my type of music. Like there's certain genres of music, electronic music specifically. There's artists specifically who are very popular who I'm just not into, and
Like who?
What genres? What genres?
Yeah, so like there's a big wave right now, and electronic music always has waves of genres that get popular. So back in 2012, it was progressive house, which is like the big Avicii, Alesso, Tiesto, like big house music. Right now, tech house is really popular, and that's like the like party, you know, just very.
What's the music that like shufflers dance to? Like
that's like tech house or like future house. Pretty much there's like the genre scene, and I make this a point on my podcast too. And for those listening, like people always ask me like, what are the genres of EDM, right? Like and there's so many. There's hundreds that you can go down. I think it's tough to really like. It's not as simple as just putting songs or artists into categories, because I think the best artists like go from genre to genre and they push themselves in different sounds, and sometimes they even create sounds or new genres. But the easiest way to do it is like there's essentially 3 main categories. Like house music, which is like the most popular, I would say. That's like the boots and cats, like, you know, and there's different variations of it. Then there's dubstep, which is harder, like darker, kind of louder, headbanging, you know, not as melodic. And then there's like techno, which is, you know, very trancey. And again, there's people probably listening or EDM hardos would tell me like, oh, well, that's not the only genres. There's this, there's that.
Guess what? Fuck them.
Yeah.
I was like.
And I think with certain artists, I try not to like, I try not to just like put people into a box of like, oh, this artist is that, so I'm not going to listen to them because I don't like that type of music. Like, I think the best artists and my favorite artists are the ones that kind of go within the bound, or they go into different boundaries and different.
They're like
genres.
dolphins.
Yeah, exactly.
Just dolphin the way I dive in and out of that friend zone, bro. Just fucking boom, boom. I like the fucking like the EDM like hip hop remixes.
Yeah.
When they fucking throw Kid Leroy on some like a pop fucking EDM remix, bro, that shit gets me going, bro.
Oh, that's a big way I got into it too. Was like I used to I'd hear my favorite song or a song that was popular.
Yeah.
At the time, whether it was a Taylor Swift song or whether it was whatever, and I'd immediately go to SoundCloud. I'd look up Taylor Swift, You Belong With Me EDM remix. And there'd be a ton that would come up. I'd find one, or I'm a big Blink-182 fan. So I'd go to, you know, YouTube or SoundCloud. I'd look up Blink-182, always EDM remix. And there's always remixes there.
Yeah.
So that's how you find like very cool, like SoundCloud's a big tool in the electronic world that artists use, DJs use, producers use.
What's the Big Booty remix? What's that?
That's Two Friends. So that's like the popular, like they've popularized it. They essentially put out a mix twice a year. That is the Big Booty mix. It's become super popular. Two Friends started out as like this mashup kind of DJ duo where they pretty much took 200 of the most popular songs and fit it into an hour mix. So every 15 seconds, a new song that people knew how to sing. There used to be someone on like mainstream radio called DJ Earworm, I think, and they used to do like the 2021 or 2010 like year in review, and it would be like one of those mixes. Two Friends is great. Like they're super popular. I think like the college crowd especially has like become super into the Two Friends Big Booty mixes. For me at this point, like again, I'm older. I'm 26, so my music taste has changed like incredibly, and it's always kind of going in and out. I always say on my podcast that like my core of what I fell in love with will always be there. Because again, I'm a huge Avicii fan. The progressive house era was like what got me into it. Then you guys will remember the Chainsmokers came around in like 2015, 2016. That was when we were in college. That led to like Galantis, into Martin Garrix. Martin Garrix led to, then there was like a weird phase of kind of like more future house. So like Illenium came on the scene, Griffin.
Do you know Jaws?
Jaws, yeah. Jaws is, I'm not like a big, again, there's a lot of artists I'm familiar with that I like know have big followings, but I'm not like, I haven't done a deep dive on. He's one of the ones that I need to go deeper on.
What about Cheat Codes?
Cheat Codes is great. They've done like 180s. Like when we were in college, they were making music kind of like the Chainsmokers. very poppy, very melodic. Now they're more like almost like punk rock, I think, like harder punk rock, like dance music. So now I'm super into my music today is melodic house, which is chiller vibe. It's like kind of repetitive, just like driving, easy to listen to. I listen to it in the shower, when I'm waking up, in the morning when I'm making coffee. But I'll also, they can ramp it up.
That's a lot of energy. Imagine listening. Like, I feel like you need to have a lot of energy to listen to this type of music.
Yeah. So it's funny because like melodic house is, in my eyes, like very peaceful, very calming music.
Throw some on.
No, we can't throw some on right now after the interview.
I'll show you guys. Like right now, people go.
You got a playlist? Do you have like?
Yeah.
You should make like the XU podcast playlist.
So
on Spotify.
Yeah. So I tweeted out today. I actually have a playlist that has like over 40 hours of music. It's my melodic house, like calming. It's called Moving Calmly on Spotify, and it's like people find it crazy. Like I'll fall asleep to it. I'll like wake up in the morning. It's good for driving, and it's good studying music. It's kind of just like.
Is it like a lo-fi beat?
Yeah. Is it like lo-fi?
It's kind of lo-fi. It's usually got like a good beat to it, so it's going. But yeah, it's very like it's tough to describe.
I'm gonna listen to it.
It's just easier to digest rather than because you can't listen to like the 3, 2, 1.
Yeah, I'll be listening to like fucking like Lil Durk in the office when I'm doing this. I need like something like more chiller to vibe to.
Melodic house has been super popular in the past couple years. And then I also do an XU Fridays playlist. So every Friday I take 10 songs, usually like 70% new music from that week that I'm like, all right, these are songs to check out. And then I'll throw in like 30% of just songs that I was fucking with during the week that are throwbacks or recent songs. So that's something we started doing a month ago. So every Friday, just 10, because Friday comes and you guys, like Friday's the best day of the week because it's like new music Friday, Release Radar, like all these playlists kind of refresh. So I figured I'm just going to...
do the same?
Yeah, do it
your own version of it.
Yeah, exactly. And kind of just confine like 10 songs for people to check out.
I was going to say, when it comes to growing the brand, like how does it feel to like... Talk us a little bit like reaching out to producers and DJs and stuff like that in that kind of like realm, because we've kind of gotten a lot of information on your podcast, the episodes, the setup, your background. But talk to us about like if you're not doing a solo episode, like when you're getting a guest on, how is that from business perspective? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So that's one thing that I've not struggled with, but found has been like harder than I originally thought was kind of the direction of where I want to take episodes.
You're an account executive for your company.
Yeah. So like so I'm very lucky. I have to shout out a Discord channel that I'm in. You guys know Discord?
Of course.
So for those who don't know Discord, it's essentially like a group me meets Reddit. It's like a group chat on steroids. Mm-hmm. Like it's a community where you can kind of meet people. And I'm in a Discord, this DJ by the name of D-Rock, who's out of Long Island, super talented dude. He started this thing back last summer, had like 20 people in it, and I joined, and he was like, because I wanted to interview him. When I was starting the podcast, I was like, I know him from Long Island. He's good. Right now he's doing like a 26-show college tour down south, makes really, really good original music. And he was like, join the Discord, and like we'll set something up for sure. So I joined the Discord. Now, fast forward to today, it's over 600 DJs, producers, aspiring people in the music industry, people like myself who just like the music, videographers. So for me as a podcaster, that's like a gold mine. Like I can go there and I can reach out to someone and say, hey, like I would say more than half of the guests that I've had have come from that Discord. And, these are not just, I think a big thing for me is the guests I have on my show, I want to like be a fan of their music. I don't want to have people on just to have them on.
Yeah.
And for me, a big thing is like, do I fuck with their music, and do I think they're like a legitimate artist? Yesterday, I interviewed a 16-year-old kid out of Denver who was in Miami this past weekend playing a show in Miami. He's like this Kid Wonder DJ. His name's Charlie Wonder, and he's putting out amazing music, and he's putting out mixes, and he's 16 years old. And I'm like,
he's playing in Miami?
Yeah, he just went to Miami from Denver, and I'm like, yo, this is a cool story. Like this is like this kid's in high school, like literally. So but going back to what I was saying, it's also when I started the podcast, I don't want it to just be interviewing DJs and producers. I think like I read, there was an Avicii book. I've mentioned Avicii a lot in the podcast, but they just came out with a book about him, like a biography about him. So I read it, me and my buddy, we both read it, and then we did a podcast like reviewing the book.
I saw it.
Kind of talking about that. There's some episodes where and I think that's what's nice is being the CEO of your own podcast is some weeks I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to go on there solo and just shoot from the hip, like, and just talk about whatever's on my mind right now and like give the people a break from like because I think the interviews and stuff can get repetitive. But so it's good to keep it fresh and kind of outsource. But that Discord has been a huge resource.
That's where you get most of your leads from?
Yeah, it's awesome. And the people in there are very receptive. And it's perfect because it's like, oh, here's 600 people who love dance music. Like, throw a podcast in. They're super supportive and, you know.
Don't be surprised, man. The internet's a crazy place.
Yeah.
If you ever think somebody's not fucking with your music or someone's not fucking with this or this, like, trust me. There's a Reddit forum, subreddit.
There's a niche community.
There's a niche community. There's a Discord. There's something's YouTube community. There is someone somewhere that's fucking with your shit.
Yeah,
sure.
There's immediate goals for the podcast are definitely like level up a little bit in terms of the guests that I'm having on and I think that goes back to the insecurities we were talking about is reaching out to people. Who like it's like, am I worthy of reaching out to this person to come on my podcast?
Fuck that mentality. Just fucking do it.
No, and that's what I've learned. And they're big in again, I'm lucky because I like have a very niche audience. Like I know my target audience. I know the people in the world, and there's DJs who are not necessarily popular or like famous DJs that are like would be gold mines to get on my podcast. Like some of these melodic house producers that I'm into. Guys like Sultan and Shepard, Jero, who I just saw in Boston last week, Nora and Pure, like Ben Bomer, like these are people who if I got on my podcast, it would be like, you know, I'd be doing laps around my room.
But that's what I'm saying, like.
But I've never heard of any of those names.
Exactly,
but
yeah.
But
Ed Cooley's more popular than like all of them. So.
But I was saying like, again, that's going back to your roots, like understanding why you do the podcast and like understanding like why you do it. Like, yes, you have guests that come on or you have a solo podcast episode or this and that. But at the end of the day, like, if you don't enjoy doing it, like just don't, like, you can't replicate that, like, fake ambition, that fake love.
100%.
You know what I mean? I would never do an episode with someone that I didn't fuck with, you know what I mean? Or I didn't appreciate, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't, like, look up to in a sense, you know what I mean? And, like, that's you have to just be open and honest with yourself, and just don't put out an episode just because, or do something just because like I want clicks or views, or I want this person because they got a blue check mark and this and that, or I need views. Like, bro, that shit will come over time with consistency. Like it'll come. Like you said, the 1%.
Yeah,
like every day,
and the authenticity of it too will show. Like, that guy Naval that I was. You guys should read his book. It's incredible. The Almanac of Naval Ravikant. He talks about how when you're doing something that you have specific knowledge in, or that you're passionate about, or that you genuinely love, you're going to be better at that because you're going to be enjoying doing it. So you're going to want to work harder at doing it because you're going to be having fun doing it. So it's going to come off, and you're going to be more passionate about it.
Yeah.
Like, and you hear that, you read that in all books and like or podcasts, like, oh, you have to do what you love, but the reason you have to do what you love is because like you will just by nature be more invested in it. You're gonna want to spend more time on it. You're gonna want to prep for a podcast more because of it. You're gonna want to reach out to this person because you want to get them on your show or whatever, because that's what you want, because you're passionate about what you're talking about.
Yeah, and it's like it's just like, and I'm not saying like there are gonna be days where you don't feel like fucking doing an episode, and that's perfectly fine. There are gonna be days where you don't come in with the energy of a fucking 1,000 rhinos, you know what I mean? Like, but that's okay. That's life, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's okay to have those ups and downs too. It's okay to have a little bit of like anxiety and like worry and shit like that, because that's normal. It also means that if you're not like nervous about something just a little bit, that means you don't really care a lot. You know what I mean? I feel like when you're getting nervous for like a job interview, you get nervous for like a application or something, like you're like, oh shit, like I'm a little nervous because you care. You know what I mean? And that's perfectly normal too.
Yeah, and I was pulling up my brother Nick, who's a writer. He tweeted something the other day that like kind of stuck out to me. He said, writing advice for himself, so this could be like podcasting advice kind of. focus on being original, not consistent. No one's short on unread emails. And I think that like is a very
Wait, read that last part.
so focus on being original, not consistent. No one's short on unread emails. So everybody has an overloaded inbox or queue of podcasts that they want to listen to, or songs that they want to get to, or emails or newsletters or whatever it might be. And I think what he's trying to say is like, and you were saying like there's going to be days where you don't want to do it, and there's going to be days where you don't want to record, or that you don't have a good idea for a podcast. And I think it's important to be like not just lenient, but like have a good approach to how you're going about your podcast. Like don't just do it just to do it. And I think because that shows, like if you're not into an episode, if you're not into an interview, that's going to come off in the episode.
Yeah.
So I think that's like a good reminder that like it's okay to like take a breather. Like take a breather from whatever you're doing, whether it's your job, whether it's your relationships or anything like that, just to be like, all right, like I'm not going to just throw stuff at the wall just because like seeing what sticks.
Yeah.
I want to make sure I take like a smart approach to it.
I see what you're saying. That's what he means by consistency, not just throwing shit at the wall. You know what I mean?
Like nobody's going to blame you for like taking a week off if like they'd rather you take a week off and put out a solid episode the following week than just throw up like a what the heck was that for you know an hour.
Yeah, we always get conflicted advice because it's always like we hear from like Jared and like Connor Hallway to be consistent all the time, but then but then now we're hearing like be more original than consistent. It's like we really got to be in the middle, like where it's like we're originally consistent. You know what I mean? Like we're original and we can be consistent if we need to, but like to your point, like then again, like everything we've dropped, like I've never put out something that I was like, I didn't really like fuck with that. Like if I didn't fuck with it, I would just take a week off.
Yeah,
I would just not put it out.
You guys do a great job of it. You guys have the seasons. You guys like break up your episodes.
Yeah, that's what he means. Like that's like we don't just fucking go from like January to December and just drop a bunch of shit.
And I think you were saying like it's a hard thing to toggle, like because you want to be consistent. Like that's the biggest thing is you want to make because and like I was saying in the beginning, it's like just put an episode out. It doesn't matter if it's bad. Like if it's bad, whatever, just throw it out. Like you're going to get better. And I think there's definitely times that you learn from maybe not your best episode or your best writing or whatever it might be. But I do think there's like some aspect to it where it's like it's okay to not like just throw something out there just because you're like, oh, I have to get an episode out this week.
I see what you're saying.
Scrambling. But it's so hard because you want to make sure you're consistent too. Yeah. So it's like trying to find the
happy middle ground.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's like that like not being so consistent where you're just throwing shit on the wall, but being consistent where you're actually putting out good shit.
Yeah.
And like you're proud of your work and not just throwing shit on the wall just to get something out there. You know what I mean? It's tough, man, because especially when you're starting out too, you want to be consistent. You want to be like just drop something just to put it out there. But honestly, I'll probably say as we've done more of this podcast, like I've learned to just like have more of that quality. And if I need to take a break, if I need to do something, I will. You know what I mean? So that's what I said. Like everything we have put out it's been great. It's been original, but it just so happens that we have been consistent, and we've been lucky that it's been consistently good.
And I think you guys are well established too. Like for me, it's I have to be a little more like.
I wouldn't say we're well established.
Well, you're more like you guys just have like I feel like you guys have a really good formula down for how you guys do things, how you market it. You guys are on top of that, and that's like what impresses me about it. Like for me, like I'm still relatively early and just like trying to figure out kind of like how I'm even approaching it. So it's like consistency is so big, and I think that quote definitely speaks to as like you become more developed and confident in what you're putting out. Yeah. Because I do think you reach a point where it's not just let's just put an episode out because it's Thursday and.
But you're gonna be able to tell. You're like you said, you'll be able to tell. So
if you're not into it,
if you put an episode and you just put it out for the fuck of it, like, bro, like so much work goes behind putting out an episode. You have no fucking idea. I'm not gonna do all that fucking work if it's ass. You know what I mean? Like, fuck it. You know what I mean? So I feel you.
Where did the X come from in the X?
The name, yeah.
Yeah, so XU, again, this is almost like an Avicii podcast, but so the original name, and you guys will like give me good advice on this, I feel like, but the name was tough because like you want to get started and you're just trying to figure it out. And I remember just being like, all right, like what am I going to call this thing? So one of my favorite songs at the time was called the Ignis, or it's called Ignis, Ignis, which means like fire or something. I thought that sounded cool. So it was originally called the Ignis Podcast. And I grabbed the logo from just like a random Google search, like Google image. Like I just grabbed it from somewhere. And then I was like 2 weeks into it. I was like, you know what? I don't think this name is it. So the XU Podcast came from an Avicii song. It's my favorite Avicii song. And the story behind the song is he actually had it was a collaborative song that he did with fans. So he like kind of sent out the stems. Stems are like the roots of the song kind of. So he had like a competition with his fan base of like, send me in bass lines, send me in drum loops, send me in all these components. And he kind of made the song in collaboration with his fans. It was like some promotion that he did. And I thought that was just kind of, and I made this connection after, but I was like, that's kind of what this idea of this podcast is. It's like a collaboration with people in the industry who are making music and loving it and creating amazing music, but also people like myself who, my friends or my brothers or, people I've met at concerts and stuff like that who are just into it. So that's kind of where the XU Podcast came.
Damn, you really love Avicii, huh?
Yeah.
Damn.
Avicii's my guy. I got a tattoo of him on my leg.
That's sick.
I'll show you off camera. 'Cause it's a little upper thigh.
Damn, show it for the ladies.
That's a little X-rated.
Yeah. That's
Avicii. The tattoo was a COVID thing. Like it was summer of 2020, and man, that was like such a shitty time. Like there were no concerts. Like I'm an outgoing guy. I like going out. I like seeing people. I like hanging out with people and meeting new people. And that was such like a tough time to just like be stuck at home. And a big thing, shout out to Christian Giacodino. Him and I would just link up on Spotify sessions, which is essentially like you can link up your Spotifys together and like listen to the same music at the same time wherever you are. So we'd be working from home and him and I would be like, you want to do a Spotify session? And I'd be in my basement at my parents' house and he would be at his house in Connecticut and we'd be listening to the same music at the same time, texting about like, here's this drop or like, countdown.
Wow, that's sick.
And share and like just chat. Oh, I've never heard this song before. It's like, oh, wait till the drop comes. And like, so that was like, the Avicii tattoo was kind of just like a symbol of like this music as a whole to me. Like obviously Avicii was my favorite guy. And when he died, like that's like a good kicker to like getting the tattoo. But I think he's just a good like symbol of like, he started it for me in terms of like getting into it and things like that. So.
What would you say to upcoming creatives, or maybe like what? Actually, even before I get there, what are you looking for out of this like podcast? Like what can we expect coming out of the podcast, and what do you like? What can we expect, and like what are you looking for like the most? Like what's something that's coming that's crazy that you really like are looking forward to?
Yeah.
Is it a specific guest that's coming on? Is it a specific stride of episodes? Like what do you want out of it really deep down?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I think for me, a big thing that I'm focusing on as I continue to try to build it is adding components to it and not making it so like one dimensional. So like I'm thinking, or I'm in the process of starting like a newsletter or like blog kind of where I can correspond episodes with articles, do a little writing to kind of coincide, maybe share playlists like through that. So that's like another dimension of the podcast that I'm adding, but also just guests, man. Like I think a big thing is just continuing to like have fun doing it. Like once I find it to be a pain in the ass to put an episode out, or that I'm finding like the promotion of it to be annoying, like that's when I'm going to cut out of it.
Yeah.
Like keeping it fresh, keeping it fun, and just talking about things that I want to talk about is like my goal for the podcast. And I think if I just naturally do that, that leads to, again, the networking from it is amazing. I'm continuing to meet people in the industry. So, in a perfect world, I'll end up doing maybe not a podcast, but like something related to just like covering music or following music or finding artists or something like that.
That'd be the EDM hub.
Yeah, exactly. There's a couple out there. Shout out to like Dancing Astronaut. They're like the main media source of dance music. They have a great Instagram, Twitter, and they're on top of everything. EDM Hub, Proximity's great. There's a couple out there, but as far as podcast goes, there's not too many electronic podcasts.
Well, that's why we have you. What's something that you would say to the fans? We're about to end this episode to the Real Relay fans, to the XU podcast, to anyone upcoming creatives, like anyone new. What's one little tidbit you
Drop
give
a
them?
gem for them.
Drop a gem.
I would say, especially for artists, is don't follow trends just to follow trends. Like you know, do what you fuck with. Like, if you're into a certain style of making music or making art or making creative, like, don't just do something because it's hot. It's what's hot on TikTok or what's hot. Like, if you're passionate about it and you're into it, like, that'll show. And if you try to fake it, it's going to come across, like, when people are consuming it. So, no, you guys were awesome, man. I appreciate you guys having me on. This was great. Real Relate, you guys are great, like, role models in the podcast. You guys have been a super big help, and I'll continue to try to, you know, follow your guys' footsteps.
Learn from our fucking silly ass mistakes, definitely.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, thank you, Widmer. We appreciate my man. I wish this could be a fucking whole 2-hour session. Maybe when I move down to Miami, you can come
I'll
down
have
and
to
visit.
come. Go to Ultra together.
Next year, 100%.
Yeah.
But I appreciate my man. Barber, any last words, anything you want to say?
No, I think that's about it. Thanks for coming on, man. We appreciate it. Awesome. I really enjoyed learning about, like, the realm.
Yeah.
That's what I love.
Sorry if I went on I feel like I
No, you're good. This just tickled my balls. I wish it was more, but we're getting kicked out from the staples, man. They're trying to close us down. God damn it.
You're good.
You already know. Throw us out. Spotify, Apple, YouTube, you know.
All
Go
right.
ahead.
Real Relay family, appreciate you guys for tuning in. This was Andrew Widmer and the XU podcast.
One of the greatest of all time. You already fucking know. Subscribe to him. I'll put all the shit in the description below. You already fucking know. If you're not listening to the fucking XU podcast, what are you doing with your life, dummy? You already know. And if you thought about something else, what is it? What do you always say? You thought wrong.
You guys are the best. Thanks.
Until next time. Peace out.
Deuces.